All right. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. What's going on? Facebook world, as well as YouTube world. What's going on? It's your main man, Shabaka Amen. And as I was preparing to go live, well, first of all, I want to say good morning again. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And happy Monday to you. I have a few things flowing through my mind, so I'm going to pace myself properly because we are in some interesting times. And when I go live, I don't like to waste time. I like to bring value. I like to inspire. I like to uplift. I like to inform. I like to educate. I like to inspire and teach. That's why I'm here. This is, it's been said in some personal growth literature that the two most important days of your life are one, the day you were born, and two, the day you discover why you were born. And I can honestly say I know why I was born. And it's a blessing. And through a lot of introspection, a lot of study, a lot of meditation, it takes courage to learn directly from God, because for us being alive and being on the planet Earth and having family and having friends and having people, oftentimes people think they know what's best for you more than God. How can anybody know what's best or better for you outside of the plan and the intelligence of what God knows and has in store for you? So I am here by virtue of God, and I'm 1,000,000,000,000% clear on that. The only reason why I am here, my heart's beating, my brain is functioning, I'm able to communicate, I'm able to bless people with insights that can change their lives immediately. That's all because of God. That's all because I do take out time, scheduled time, most days, and I get still. I literally practice getting still. Because when you practice being still, you can actually receive what I call the downloads, the revelations of what God has planned for you. So there's no greater teacher, there's no greater insight that you can receive than direct insight. However, you've got to learn how to put your brain in a state so you can receive that insight. So I only wanted to start off by sharing that I'm here at this moment in time just because of the grace of the Creator. And, I'm just grateful. People, the coronavirus, whatever, that's not bigger than God. In fact, God's biology has enormous potential to fight most all viruses, including the coronavirus, if and only if you eat like you matter. You see, if you don't eat like you matter, if you eat from emotion versus spiritual law, which science has revealed patterns, that there are action, reaction, result patterns. When you put specific types of food in your body, as opposed to so-called food, which I refer to nowadays as crap, calorie rich and processed foods. When you put God's foods in your body, science has discovered certain things that will happen upon the consumption of micronutrients and fiber rich foods, which are plant-based foods. So if you see the image behind me, you see a variety of vegetables. And of course, when you say plant-based, we're talking about fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, beans, and whole grains. And African Americans are at a critical crossroads. And when I say I'm speaking about on a national level, I'm talking about African Americans as a whole are at a critical crossroads. This is 2020. This is a year of foundation, organization, and structure. And in terms of African American health history, the African American health history has not been good. And because of, I'm starting out deep. I thought I was going to warm up. See, what happens is when you don't get enough sleep, you just dive right on in. What they call it the law of the conservation of energy. And we're all governed by that law, whether we know it or not. The law of the conservation of energy. There's a part of us that seeks to be effective and get right to it without wasting energy and time. So I'm getting right to it. I'm coming right to the matter at hand. African Americans, and I can say this because I'm a member of the African American family, and I have enormous love and respect for the human family, like everybody. Anybody that knows me, I genuinely enjoy and like all people. And I have friends from different ethnic groups and races, and I've trained, coached, and spoken to and helped and benefited from people of all races and ethnic groups. So nothing but love for the human family. Nothing but love for the human family. However, I know that God made and designed me on purpose in this particular form. You know, being a perfect person of African descent born in America. So with this spacesuit comes a unique destiny, a unique purpose. There's a purpose tied to this package referred to as being an African American. And, you know, for 22 years, I've had the wonderful opportunity to serve and bless all types of people. And I still do, because the Plant-Based Loser Challenge community is a community of all different types of people. You know, I have Black folks, white folks, male, female, some elderly, some middle-aged, some in their 20s. But, you know, that's a blessing to be able to inspire and uplift and teach and help all different types of people. Because truthfully, when you have love in your heart, it's only natural. When you really put God first place, if you have love, it doesn't have a boundary. If you have compassion, it doesn't have a boundary. You know, there's a lot of people touting that word compassion in the vegan community, but oftentimes, unfortunately, that compassion is limited to the animals. And I dare challenge and say, how can you have compassion for animals and not for all humans? But that's for another conversation. And there's a time for that too. But this conversation is about African Americans. And the reason why is because we all know, we've all gotten the reports for the last 4 to 5 days. African Americans, according to all the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, African Americans are disproportionately being impacted by COVID-19 at alarming rates. Now, African Americans account for approximately 13% of the US population. But for those states who've published racial data around who has been impacted, from Caucasians to African Americans to Latinos, the evidence indicates in those states that have published data, racial data, showing the numbers of deaths by COVID-19 along racial lines, it's clear that in specific major cities, African Americans as well as Latino Americans are being adversely impacted. The fatalities, the deaths of African Americans and Latino Americans, people of color, is very, very high given our population percentage. From what I understand, more Caucasian Americans are being infected by the coronavirus as well as dying from COVID-19. So when we say disproportionate, we're talking about based off of population percentage. We're accounting for 13%, and according to the data, African Americans account for 13% of the US population. But one US senator suggested that, or didn't suggest it, she said it outright. Kamala Harris mentioned that, let me see if I can pull it up so I can read it, because I always like to come correct with the information. I want to always come correct with the information. Let's see what we got. So on YouTube, I don't know if any of you saw it, Sean P. Diddy Combs, on his Revolt platform, he had a town hall discussion. And Kamala Harris, the US senator, lawyer, and politician, she says, and I quote, 40% of the deaths in the United States for COVID-19, 40% have been Black folks, despite the fact that we're only approximately 13% of the population. So that's a direct quote from Kamala Harris, and I'm assuming everybody knows who she is. In case, in the event that you're not clear, here's a picture of her. Of course, she ran, put herself in the bid politics-wise so that she could become the next president of the US. But of course, she is no longer in the race. So that statement comes from her. And I'm gonna bring it up one more time. 40% of the deaths in the United States for COVID-19, 40% have been Black folks, despite the fact that we're only approximately 13% of the population. So when you see and hear about information like that, without a doubt, one thing I can say with certainty is that the coronavirus is the alarm and the wake-up call for all African Americans. You see, I can say this because I'm part of the African American family. You know how sometimes you have in your own family, only family members can say certain things to you and more or less get away with it. There's a personability there where there's not a boundary that would prevent you from speaking certain truths, being more straightforward, and telling it like it is, as African Americans have a tendency to say. So I have to tell it like it is, and this is what I want to share with you, and I want you to read it. The public health of African Americans has been in a state of emergency for decades. Now, if we look at the data, we know that's true. The public health of African Americans has been in a state of emergency for decades. That's just real talk. We have to be honest about what's really going on. And the reality of it is, being a nutrition performance coach and personal trainer for so many years, I've had the opportunity to serve many African Americans. Well, I appreciate you saying that, Veronica. I appreciate you saying that. I'm going to bring what Veronica Davidson has said on screen. Thank you for that comment. This is from Veronica Davidson. Love and respect, peace and love. Veronica, we're from the same hometown, Atlantic City, New Jersey. And Veronica has said, this is what we need, Shabaka, an awakening, unlearning, and relearning, even if it means taking small or intentional steps toward what is divine in nature and what will ultimately save us. Lead the way. You've got the platform. Thank you so much, Veronica. I appreciate that. Hey, it's a blessing when you have the blessing of a Black woman, man. You know, it don't, between God and the blessing of a Black woman, that's a blessing. So I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, to Veronica for that blessing. And I ask God every morning to use me as an instrument to lead African Americans into an era of new African American health success. And that's what the Plant-Based Day Pledge is all about. The Plant-Based Day Pledge is a public health demonstration encouraging all African Americans to adopt a plant-based eating style as a step towards metabolic health and a stand against food slavery. And the Plant-Based Day Pledge came as revelation. I know for years, God has been stirring things up in my spirit. It's been a lot of changes in my personal life. I went from being in a relationship for 9 years to not being in one, and we're co-parenting. So a lot of changes have happened in the past year and the last 2 years. So, you know, oftentimes you go through a pruning, you go through a lot of shifts happen, a lot of agitation, a lot of adversity happens so God can prepare you for what's next. And I have no doubt this has been the moment that God has been waiting for. And I had to get still. I had to learn how to pray and ask God for guidance, ask God for wisdom and understanding. I was a person that always did things purely off my intellect and heart and care too. But I've learned to ask God for guidance because I didn't get here by myself. I didn't create this body temple. I didn't create my purpose. I'm here because of God, you know, and I didn't create me. I don't even operate me. I mean, I use my free will to make sure I eat my plant-based foods and meditate and observe laws and aim to be wise. And I'm someone who's in growth and constant growth, but that perfection is God. So I have to rely on that presence, that omnipresence, that omniscience, the wisdom, so I can daily get direction, that omnipotence, you know. So I am here with the Plant-Based Day Pledge, all because of God, all because of God. This Plant-Based Day Pledge came directly from God as revelation for African Americans because, you know, you've had great individuals before me who've paved the way, people like Dick Gregory. Salute, rest in power to the soul and spirit of Dick Gregory. Salute, rest in power to the soul of Dr. Sebi. Salute, rest in power to the soul of Dr. Laila Africa. And these were giants in the African American community, many of which have had global impact. When you think of Dick Gregory, the things he was doing when he was on the planet, he did so much. When you look at Dr. Sebi, you know, the things that Dr. Sebi did and the reach and influence he's still having as a result of his teachings about disease and his teachings about alkaline eating. So you had these plant-based pioneers in the African American community, Dr. Laila Africa, Dick Gregory, Dr. Sebi, giants sounding the alarm for all African Americans. These guys were sounding the alarm. And some of us heard it. Some of us took heed. Some of us said, whoa, this standard American diet is leading African Americans to pre-existing conditions this standard American diet consisting of calorie-rich and processed foods, high animal product consumption, very little to no plant-based foods, is causing African Americans to die prematurely. And one of the bad habits African Americans have is when people die from heart attacks, complications with diabetes, strokes, Black people want to blame it on God. God calls such on now. Come on now. So if somebody crosses the street on a red light, they exercise their free will, their God-given free will, and they chose to cross the street on a red light and they get hit by a car. Now, they might cross the street on a red light and not be hit by a car on the first attempt. But at some point, if you continue to cross the street on a red light, you're going to get hit by a car. African Americans have been, in general, I'm not saying all African Americans, but I'm saying the majority of African Americans and the majority of Americans have been utilizing their God-given free will. And looking at USDA data, United States Department of Agriculture data, it indicates that the average American consumes more calorie-rich and processed foods. The average American consumes high amounts of animal products. And the average American has small amounts of plant-based food consumption, mostly in the form of potatoes in the form of French fries. Now, a lot of people are changing. A lot of people are evolving. But if you look at the epidemiological data, it does not indicate widespread on levels where when they look at the diabetes numbers, what population groups in America have alarming rates of diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is African Americans, and diabetes in general, type 1 or type 2. But type 2 diabetes seems to be spreading through the air like a virus, but it's not a virus. Coronavirus is a virus. But African Americans, because of their food slavery and their addiction, are being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So many African Americans have high rates of hypertension. Don't take my word for it. Let me pull up the data. Let me pull up the information. And I'm taking you somewhere. So bear with me because I am taking you somewhere. It's important to lay the groundwork, okay? It's important to lay the groundwork because this is a serious situation. This is a serious situation, and let me bring this on screen. This is serious. This is serious. I want you to see what I put together. And this is true. This is real. The coronavirus and African American alarm and wake-up call. See, many of us during the time of Dick Gregory's presence on the planet, during the time of Dr. Sebi's presence on the planet, during the time of the late and more recent times, Dr. Lila Africa's presence on the planet, and there have been many healers, African-American healers. I'm just naming some famous ones, some of the ones who were able to have global impact. There are other ones who've had national impact. There's other ones who've had great impact in their community. Some of them I don't even know, but we all have heard of Dick Gregory. We know the work he's done. We all have heard of Dr. Sebi. We know the work he's done. We've all heard of Dr. Laila Africa. We know the work they've done. So they were sounding the alarm for decades. They've been sounding the alarm for decades, and only a small portion of a very, very small portion of the African-American population was taking heed and implementing the guidelines they were laying out, the nutritional guidelines they were laying out. And this is why we have higher incidences of heart disease based off disproportionately high levels of heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, strokes. So the coronavirus right now is an African-American alarm that's got everybody's attention. It's got all people in the world's attention. It's an alarm for everybody. But with African-Americans disproportionately dying from COVID-19 and Latino Americans too, people of color, this is a wake-up call moment. It's a wake-up call moment. It's a wake-up call moment. It's a point in time where you can pivot. You can pivot. For those of you who, whether you've been infected with the coronavirus or not, because most of us have not been tested. So on some level, you don't even know. I don't even know. Now, based off how I feel amazing. I feel like normal. I got high energy. My lungs are clear. I can take in such a volume of air. I know my immune system's powerful. I've been doing my prayer. I've been on my plant-based foods at a high level, which is normal, everyday practice. How many of you can say that you're plant strong? How many of you right now can say that you've been focused on giving God's biology nutrient and fiber dense, immune boosting, antiviral containing nutrients found in plant-based foods? How many of you can say that? I want to see a comment. I want to see a comment right now. You know, I'm a coach, man. I'll put it on you. You know, if anybody's ever talked to me, you know, you see the smile, but I'm a serious person because life is serious. It's meant to be enjoyed, and we're here to enjoy life. But you have so many people who eat like they don't matter in the African-American community. Now, is this an American problem? Are Caucasians eating like they don't matter? Yes, many Caucasians are eating like they don't matter. Latino people eating like they don't matter. It's not just an African-American problem, but I'm talking about African-Americans right now because if you look at the data, it shows that we're eating the worst based off of these pre-existing conditions and comorbidities. So let's go into it. Let's go into it. You know, I want to lead with a couple questions, and I want to show you this. So here's the question. Why is COVID-19 disproportionately killing African Americans? I did a live a few nights ago asking that question. Speaking to it. Who in the African American population is dying from COVID-19? Who in the African American population is dying from COVID-19? See, we're not really seeing all of the news. If you're reading, you know there's a lot of people who've been infected by the coronavirus, but they've recovered. There's a lot of people who are recovering more than dying. And the last question, what can African Americans immediately do about it? What can African Americans immediately do about it? Well, I've got a suggestion. It's called the PlantBased Day Pledge. And I'm going to drop some more information shortly about that. So I'm going to look for some more questions and comments. I got a lot to say. I got a lot to share. I think I'm doing a pretty good job. I so often just start talking, and I'm glad that I'm interacting. I'm making this interactive as much as I can. Arshana Copeland left a comment. I eat out of emotion. How do I stop? Well, Arshana, there's a reason why you eat out of emotion because, see, food slavery is widespread. The real true culprit, the real true enemy is food slavery. And what I mean by food slavery, Arshana, is widespread economic and nutritional consumption of calorie-rich and processed foods that are addictive and responsible for our epidemics of obesity, chronic diseases, and premature death. So when I say food slavery, I'm talking about widespread food addiction. You see, when you consume calorie-rich and processed foods, it releases dopamine. And if you eat processed foods, white flour, white sugar, stuff with fat, when I say stuffed foods, processed foods with fat, I'm talking about oils. Oils are fats. Fats are oils. What happens is they know, they have studies they've done with rodents. Whenever they combine sugar, salt, and fat, those rodents would travel miles to eat the crap, the calorie-rich and processed foods that are laced with sugar, salt, and fat. So a lot of processed foods have either all three, sugar, salt, and fat, or two, sugar, high fructose corn syrup. Sometimes it's high fructose corn syrup, sometimes it's sugar. It will say sugar. But sugar and oil, sugar, oil, and flour, whether it's white flour or highly processed whole grain flour, either way, it releases dopamine. So the reason why you're eating from emotion is because you have food addiction. And even if you attempt to stop, with the exception of using my plant-based protocols, if you attempt to stop on your own and you realize that eating calorie-rich and processed foods, eating high amounts of animal products are the reason why you feel lethargic and tired and you have excess fat on your body, and you can't control that addictive hunger, is because of not just dopamine release. When you pull back and make an attempt to stop eating those calorie-rich and processed foods, what happens is toxic metabolites, which are a byproduct of consuming, it's a metabolic toxin produced from consuming calorie-rich and processed foods, flours, sugars, oils, foods with those ingredients. What happens is these toxic metabolites cause you to have intense cravings, withdrawal symptoms, headaches, shakes, the jitters, moodiness. So dopamine and toxic metabolites are the reason why you're eating from emotion. And that's for everybody. If you've been in the grips of addictive hunger and you know you need to eat better, you know you need to eat more salads, you know you need to eat more fruits, you are a food addict. So food slavery is the reason why there is a high incidence of pre-existing conditions and comorbidities that are leading. See, prior to the coronavirus, prior to the COVID-19 disease, African Americans have been dying in alarming. There's been a public health state of emergency all along. It's just that because of sports, because of entertainment, Housewives of Atlanta, and everything else, everybody's distracted. Although people in their families dying prematurely, African Americans almost seem to tolerate pre-existing conditions. There's so many, and I know, I'm a coach, I'm a trainer, I know firsthand. I have people in my community that have type 2 diabetes. I've had people I've worked with who've had a heart attack and they're doing fine now. I have people who are obese. So what I'm saying is, in America, and African Americans are part of that America, there's a tendency to tolerate pre-existing conditions. There's a tendency to tolerate chronic diseases. It's a tendency to tolerate living with chronic diseases and accepting this medical model of managing chronic diseases, pre-existing conditions, comorbidities. And this is why, now that Corona is on the scene, if you have pre-existing conditions, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, obesity or overweight, especially central obesity, high blood pressure, etc. These pre-existing conditions, these comorbidities are the reason why we're seeing the fatalities of African Americans at disproportionate levels. This is why read the fine print. It's there. They're letting you know who's actually dying. Pre-existing conditions. So let me bring that up on screen. So Arshana, thanks for the comment. Arshana, I'm going to offer and extend out the pledge. Arshana, I want you to take the Plant-Based Day Pledge because there is a Plant-Based Day Pledge meal plan that you can benefit from that will free you from addictive hunger, free you from the cravings for sugary, salty, and fatty processed foods in one day. How do I know? Because I've been using it to help my customers online as well as prior to online, one-on-one customers for many, many years. And it's evolved. I've got it down to where people feel good the first day. They don't have any cravings for sugary, salty, and fatty processed foods. No headaches, no withdrawal symptoms. You see, when you're addicted to highly processed foods, calorie-rich and processed foods, you've been eating for dopamine release. And the toxic metabolites are circulating in your body and they're influencing your choices. See, people are not eating from evidence. People are eating from emotion because of food slavery. And on a micro individual level is food addiction. So let me bring up some statistics. Arshana, you now have an opportunity to participate in the Plant-Based Day Pledge. I hope you take it. And God has been working through me because I am an entrepreneur and I love serving and helping people and have been about the business of helping people achieve biological wealth. In my mind, in my will, I was going to start out by charging $49 to enroll. It's going to go up to $49 because really it's worth way, way more. But God told me to offer it for $20.20. And I was like, what? I said, okay, no problem. People need a very, very economical way to make immediate change without the excuse of it's expensive, it costs too much. $20.20. When you take the Plant-Based Day Pledge, $20.20. You're going to be added to the Plant-Based Day Pledge community online. I'm going to be providing inspirational videos. You're going to have meal plans. I've got a upcoming plant-based intermittent fast plan. It's already made. I'm not going to release it until a few weeks from now. It'll be released in May, but it's already developed. It's already been helping folks. Keep in mind, I have a Plant-Based Loser Challenge community of paid members, and we're almost at 100 people. So and even prior to my Plant-Based Loser Challenge, I've been using therapeutic, metabolically enhancing meal protocols to help people lose weight. I'm talking 26 pounds, 15 to 26 pounds in 21 days. I'm talking people with type 2 diabetes. I put them on this plant-based metabolic weight loss plan. And if they stick to it for 30 days, their type 2 diabetes is gone. And I have medical documentation to substantiate what I just said. And I have people on video talking about it who I've helped. 6 African Americans reverse type 2 diabetes. God did the healing, but I was the teacher. I provided the guideline. So the reality of it is there's not one person who's African American that has to live with pre-existing conditions and comorbidities and keep themselves at risk for dying from COVID-19. It's one thing to be infected, and I pray and ask, I rebuke the coronavirus. I don't have time for no mess like that. I'm washing my hands. I'm doing the spiritual level and the chemical level. You know, you got to wash your hands. When people come up on me, I had a young lady wanted to shake my hand the other night. I was like, whoa, didn't you get the message? I had to pull back. And I love people. I would have shook her hand. I would have given her a hug. But I was just like, hey, you know, we can't be doing that now. Just last night. So here's the reality. We all take precautions. I do have a sense of humor. As serious as I am, if for those who know me personally, if you don't know me personally, then you don't know. But I tell jokes a lot. I love laughing, and I laugh most days, and I smile most days, and I genuinely feel love and happiness most days and joy. It's free energy. Why not tap into it? God given energy built into the spirit. But at any rate, I digress. So look, I want to show you something that's really, really important to see. Oh, Demetria, thank you so much, Demetria Pierce. I know who you are. What's going on? Thank you so much for your statement. Great message, always very informative. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I love doing what I do. And this is a special time. And at the depths of my soul and heart, because God put this in my heart. I was given a vision. I have a dream too. And that dream was revealed to me by God directly. And God revealed to me that African Americans have a wonderful opportunity to live being healthy. We have a wonderful opportunity to create a new African American health story. Every single African American human being can actually benefit from a plant-based eating style, also referred to as a whole foods plant-based diet. I like to refer to it as a micronutrient and fiber-dense plant-based eating style versus the word diet. And here's the truth. All of the comorbidities and pre-existing conditions that are causing the coronavirus to create serious complications with breathing, the destruction of internal organs are happening because, truthfully and honestly speaking, any American with pre-existing conditions, and there are plenty of Americans with pre-existing conditions or chronic diseases, medically diagnosed chronic diseases, diabetes, hypertension, high blood serum triglycerides, high LDL, lowered HDL. It's all diet induced. It's what you're eating. It's all what you're eating. So unfortunately, I have to be honest. And it breaks my heart to say this. But when I came to the realization of what's really going on, I didn't go live for about a day. There was like a day or a day and a half where I didn't go live because I was just angry. I was just upset. I felt so bad seeing the news coverage, the images of African Americans being wheeled out on stretchers, reading about the data. I've been in prayer. I mean, I felt heartbroken, but at the same time, God was like, come on, dude, I got work for you to do. This is exactly why I brought you to this moment. And I prepared you for this moment because you've been on a path for 22 years. You've been obedient. You've been helping people. And now we're doing it nationally. Now, through the PlantBased Day Pledge, African Americans see the day is a metaphor. Yes, it's about encouraging African Americans to adopt the plant-based eating style for an entire day. However, in that or during that day, your biology, God's biology, will bear witness to more energy, more mental clarity and focus. If you're overweight, you can drop 1 pound to 2 pounds of fat on the PlantBased Day Pledge meal plan. How do I know? because it's an adaptation of what I've used for the Plant-Based Loser Challenge. I'm blessing people. I'm asking God to use me as an instrument. This is serious. This is serious. Look, everyone was chanting Black Lives Matter years ago. Okay, if you really and truly believe that Black Lives Matter, prove it. Why don't you demonstrate how true that is by eating like you matter? This is what the Plant-Based Day Pledge is all about. Encouraging African Americans to eat like they matter. We do not have to die from COVID-19, despite what we're seeing on the news. Read between the lines, read the information. If you see there are so many people who've been infected by the virus, there's more people that have recovered than the fatalities. See, you got to read everything. Read everything you can get your hands on. But more importantly, pray and go plant-based. And so I'm going to ask every single one of you, support me in supporting you and all African Americans in taking this pledge, this Plant-Based Day Pledge. This is so important right now because unfortunately, truthfully, honestly, African Americans have been turning a blind eye to eating like they matter. Ooh, my goodness. I need to put some sound effects on or something. I'm going to get real high tech. But in all seriousness, I have been coaching and working with African Americans and all groups of people ethnically. And, I've been on Charlotte Today and Fox News Rising. Then I was on the news last week, not for nutrition. A reporter wanted to get my comment on the people out in the park playing volleyball. He wanted me to say something negative, but I did not. So I've made a lot of TV appearances, and I asked God to use me as an instrument to inspire, to uplift. And, again, 22 years of serving people, contributing to people's lives, making a difference. The whole theme of my life's work for 22 years has been, I've been about the business of helping people achieve biological wealth. I've been about the business of showing people the power of a plant-based eating style in engineering metabolic health. Everybody talks a good game. Everybody says they want to be healthy. Everybody says that. Oh, I just want to be healthy. Well, if you don't eat salads, that's bullshit. Y'all weren't expecting that. I dropped the bomb. I try to minimize that. That's just called passion. That's called conviction. Here's the truth. The only way we know whether or not you truly want to be healthy is by virtue of the meals that you consume day to day. That's the only way you're going to know if that's true. You can't keep saying I want to be healthy, but day to day you remain in food slavery by your habits. So the Plant-Based Day Pledge is about helping African Americans to make a pledge, a commitment for one day to experience being on a plant-based eating style guideline that I developed. I promise you, you're going to feel amazing. If you have excess body fat, you'll drop a pound of fat. You have more energy. You won't be experiencing the very thing that is the obstacle that's preventing you from losing weight. You will not experience addictive hunger. You will not experience cravings for sugary, salty, and fatty processed foods. Once you overcome food addiction, you have a shot at health success or metabolic health, but also the body image of your dreams. Everybody, we don't all just want to be healthy. Who doesn't want to feel and look sexy? Come on now, let's be real. I meet people, I just want to be healthy. And they're standing in front of me 50 to 100 pounds overweight. Well, if you really wanted to be healthy, you wouldn't be tolerating remaining overweight. Now, that's not a judgment. That's just being honest. We have to begin to be honest. We can't change. I'm going to be honest. Can I be honest? Do I have permission? if you look at the data, the obesity and overweight data, African American women have the highest body fat percentages of any population segment of Americans. It's African American women. And this is just data I'm bringing forth just so, you know. Now, remember, I'm out in the marketplace. You know, I've had partnerships with Earth Fare. I've had partnerships with Whole Foods. I've really built my business by positioning myself at health food stores locally in Charlotte prior to the online era and me doing what I do now. And of course, I've trained and coached a lot of African American women, and many have benefited and lost weight in my programs. But then, you know, I meet a lot of different African American women, and depending on finances, and, you know, they may or may not be able to do it. But sometimes I'll hear the statement like, I'm not focused on losing weight right now. I just want to tone up. I've had African American women who are clearly have a very, very high body fat percentage and say to me, I just want to tone up. And, you know, so the reality of it is there are a lot of African Americans, for some reason in our culture, we have a very low standard when it comes to health success. We have a very low standard when it comes to health success. We eat like we don't matter. We tolerate obesity. We tolerate remaining overweight. And I don't just mean black women, black men too. I see a lot of black men in the gym, and they see me, and they're, you know, they show love and they say, man, I can't believe you're 48 going on 49. And I appreciate that. But too many African American men are tolerating central obesity. That's why we see so many African American men with high blood pressure. That's why we see so many African American men with prostate cancer. This is why we see so many African American men with abnormal cholesterol levels. This is why we see so many African American men having strokes. Once you have excess abdominal belly fat, also referred in medicine as central obesity, it's a precursor condition that opens the way for other metabolic syndrome conditions, such as hypertension, such as abnormal cholesterol levels, such as high blood serum triglycerides, such as elevated blood glucose because of insulin resistance. If you have 3 out of those 5 conditions, you have what medicine refers to as metabolic syndrome. But each condition I name is considered a pre-existing condition, and a cluster of conditions, metabolic syndrome being a cluster of at least 3 out of the 5, is what they would call a comorbidity. So if you look at all the data on who's dying from COVID-19, over 80%, I got the data, I don't want to mix it up. I have all these numbers flowing in my head, but over 80% I read of the incidences of COVID-19 fatality, over 80% of those individuals had pre-existing conditions. Okay? So people are dying from COVID-19. African Americans are disproportionately dying from the coronavirus because they have had asthma already. They already had hypertension. They already had type 2. Doesn't mean you have to have all of it. A pre-existing condition makes you susceptible to fatality with the coronavirus. Okay? So, what is the Plant-Based Day Pledge all about? Well, even prior to the coronavirus, I've been working on it. And since the spread of it, since the news, since the panic, since the lockdown, God's like, you need to get this out now. That's, you know, God, I could feel like, whoa, I could barely sleep at night. So here we are. The page is up. I'll be making it more and more aesthetic, but payments can be processed. And I want everybody, you know, even if you feel like you're in great shape, you got it covered, you want a plant-based kick, show me some love. Show some support. It's only $20.20. Buy it for someone else. Even if you're on top of your game, there's some African American women who are on an alkaline diet and doing well, got it down, show me some love. Send me somebody that needs coaching. Send me somebody that needs a guideline. Send me somebody that's in the grips of food addiction and they're overweight and they've been wanting to make changes in the way they eat, but they have not because they don't even realize that food addiction is the reason why they can't stop. Okay? I have an intervention for that, you know? And so I'm asking everybody to show support for the Plant-Based Day Pledge. The Plant-Based Day Pledge, again, is a public health demonstration encouraging all African Americans to adopt a plant-based eating style as a step towards metabolic health and a stand against food slavery. This is a plant-based diet is our solution. A plant-based diet is our solution, whether we know it or not. Looking at the clinical and scientific evidence, plant-based eating style has been proven to prevent, arrest, and reverse chronic diseases. And of course, it can prevent premature death. God didn't design our biology to die from chronic diseases. Chronic diseases, pre-existing conditions, comorbidities, all exist because of neglect, ignorance, food addiction, and unwillingness to eat according to the way our biology was designed. See, it's a violation if I drink soda. If you drink soda, the first thing, so when you look at one of the pre-existing conditions, that's, first of all, coronavirus affects the respiratory system. It's a respiratory disease. It's affecting the respiratory tract. So think of all the people that eat a lot of cheese, they drink sodas, do both, one or the other, low plant-based food consumption, low water intake, just all out violating their body day to day, eating as if they don't matter, eating as if there's no recognition of God. You can pray over your food all you want. If you got a plate full of meat, overly cooked vegetables, macaroni and cheese, you still going to have type 2 diabetes. You're still going to have heart disease. Heart disease is the number one killer of African Americans. Heart disease is the number one killer of all Americans. So we got to stop playing games. Black people, you keep saying to me, I don't want to be in no meds. Now, I coach and work with all people. I've never heard a Caucasian person that I've interacted with, I don't want to be on no meds. Because white folks, when something happened, they will get on some meds. Black folks, you get diagnosed with something, and then you're talking about not wanting to be on meds. Now, don't get me wrong. Some African Americans get on meds and have no problem with it. But I meet a lot of African Americans, they got high blood pressure, and they talking about getting off meds. And I'm trying to say, hey, well, get on my plan so you can get off meds and not die. So here's the reality. You can't say you don't want to be on meds, but then you won't eat plant-based foods. It makes no sense. See, your biology is going to be on some kind of chemistry. And if you're smart and if you're wise and you don't want to keep tolerating chronic disease, keep managing chronic diseases, because the medical model of prescription drugs treatment is about management of symptoms. But then in the process of being on any one prescription drug has a list of side effects. So if you're on 2 prescription drugs, you got the synergism of all those side effects interacting and down-regulating your intracellular power, God-given power in the cells, which is light production, and all those parts inside the cell, whether it's your telomeres, your DNA strands, your genes. You being on meds is causing all those mechanisms to downregulate, to go into malfunction. But then you're already deficient in plant-based nutrients. So if you're nutritionally deficient, another way of saying plant-based food nutrient deficient, and you're on meds, so yeah, it makes sense why people are dying prematurely. So for so long, African Americans have ignored, turned a blind eye to eating like they matter. African Americans have been living with chronic diseases. And now these chronic diseases, these pre-existing medical conditions, also referred to as comorbidities, upon being affected with the coronavirus, unfortunately, is causing fatality. All right? So here's what we need to do. Here's what I'm encouraging African Americans to do. I said I did promise some data. Let me see if there's some more questions and comments. Katie Garcia, let me bring her statement. Katie Garcia, do you eat processed meats? Thank you for the question. I've been on a plant-based and vegan diet for 32 years, Katie, but thank you for the question. So to answer your question, no, I certainly don't. I don't eat any animal products whatsoever. It's been that way for 32 years, and I'll be 49 in June. And most people think that I am 30, 32. And I'm not bragging or boasting. I'm just acknowledging God's biological health potential, because this is all because of God. I just figured out at a young age how to eat to support what God gave me. Can I get an amen to that? Can I get an amen to that? Come on now. I figured out at the age of 17, I figured out at a young age that I was not going to put myself biologically in a position where I would have heart disease and type 2 and high. I learned from Dick Gregory early on that this stuff is preventable. Dick Gregory's book was the first nutrition book I ever read, Cooking with Mother Nature for Folks Who Eat, Dick Gregory, and Alvenia Fulton. It's co-written. That book laid out the nutritional science. And then prior to that, I had been exposed to Dr. Laila Africa's literature, printouts that my cousins, Taiwan Kamau, gave me copies and printouts of certain pages in the book African Holistic Health, which he was talking about, avoiding white flour and white sugar and the hazards of consuming them and how they created disease in the body. And then I had Dr. Sebi's literature, which I was studying in the summer of 1990 intensely. I had Dr. Sebi's literature as early as 1988. And I peeped at it and I read it, but I didn't really dive into it until summer of 1990. So I had been influenced by some really, really great pioneers, and their literature and their work had shaped my understanding of disease, as well as how do you engineer health. So here I am, standing on the shoulders of people like Dick Gregory, standing on the shoulders people like Dr. Sebi, standing on the shoulders of people like Dr. Laila Africa, who transitioned. He's an ancestor now. He transitioned about a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe not even 3 weeks. But I'm just grateful for what they contributed. And their work, their legacy lives on through myself and other people. So Katie, I know that answers your question. Let me see if there's some more questions. I have some stuff I want to share. Arshana Copeland, what about the vegan meats? Are they okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to go too much into nutritional strategy. That's why you want to take the pledge, take the Plant-Based Day Pledge, because this broadcast isn't to go into strategy. It's broadcast to talk about the overall strategy that we need to participate in, which is adopting a nutrient and fiber-dense plant-based eating style. I'm not going to go into tactical stuff. That's why it's important to take the pledge, enroll for $20.20, Arshana, and you will have me being able to answer questions like this, because this is getting into tactical stuff, and this is really going to be reserved for people who are serious, because me answering that question is really a question in the context of understanding the bigger picture, how to eat in a sustainable way to produce metabolic health long term, how to make specific and immediate changes to your biology within a day, within a week. That's what I specialize in. If I put somebody on a meal plan, their biology is going to shift and begin to shift in a beneficial way that same day. Addictive cravings are going to disappear that same day. People with type 2 diabetes are going to arrest and reverse it within a matter of 4 weeks. High blood pressure will normalize in less than 5 days. Actually, the first day you're on my meal plan, if you have hypertension, your blood pressure will go down the first day. And so anything you do repetitively, successively, it's the law of compounding at work. So if you adopt the plant-based eating style, every single meal, and I want you to really listen to what I'm going to share with you. This is the most important nutritional insight never told, what I'm going to share with you right now. Because if you don't understand this, then you don't really understand how powerful your biology is. And you will never understand how much power you have to engineer the health you say you want. So pull out a pen and paper. All actions, and I'm referring to eating actions, all eating actions, every single eating action causes a reaction inside of your biology. Specifically, reactions in your biochemistry, your blood pH, your hormones. Specifically, reactions within your cells, which we would call metabolism, which is an intracellular, which is reactions inside the cell. Specifically, reactions in your mitochondria, reactions to your genes, your DNA. Reactions in your physiology, which is your tissue, your organs. Like whatever meal you consume, there are reactions that are going to happen inside your kidneys. The reactions are going to happen inside your liver. The reactions are going to happen inside, to your blood vessels, your arteries, veins, and capillaries. So I would teach my customers years ago that, and I'm sharing it with you now, this is the greatest, this is engineering, this principle. If you understand this pattern, life reveals patterns. Once you have patterns, once you know a pattern, you have a code. Once you have a code, you can always produce results. Once you know the code. If you don't know the code, you have uncertainty. If you don't know the code or the pattern to things, you can never figure out how to solve any problem. So here's the code. All eating actions always constantly cause reactions, biochemical, metabolic, and physiological reactions. And all biochemical, metabolic, and physiological reactions are either beneficial or detrimental. There are no neutral reactions. The reactions inside your biology from a meal you consume have detrimental impact or beneficial impact. And so these biochemical, metabolic, and physiological reactions in turn produce results that are measurable, results that are measurable in terms of your energy levels, results that are measurable in your adipose tissue or your muscle tissue, results, if it's adverse, edema, water retention, results in tissue like an inflammatory response, which first takes place in your blood vessels or vascular system. And because capillaries are branches that go all over, like every area of that I'm touching right now, I'm touching on capillaries, bundles of capillaries. Every area I'm touching is capillaries. Capillaries are the smallest blood vessels. Capillaries have blood in them. What I'm saying to you is there's an action, reaction, results pattern. That's the code. So I learned that not even necessarily from research. That's what you call revelation type of stuff. That's the stuff that, God gives you a wisdom. When you pay attention to something and there's a love and there's a passion, there's a curiosity, when you want to understand why and how things work, God starts giving up the answers. And so I've been blessed. This is part of my life's work where, because I'm on a planet to do this kind of work, and I've been obedient, God has revealed the secrets. Okay. Secrets just are patterns and codes that are not obvious to most people because they may not be seeking. So action, reaction, results. That's the code. That's the pattern. That's how you can engineer your health. But you need guidelines. So as a member of the Plant-Based Day Pledge community, you get guidelines, you get food lists, you get meal plans. Let me go into that. I'm going to have to probably do a part 2, but I'm going to ask everybody, please show support so I can support you. And Arshana, I want to serve. I want to help. So go ahead and enroll. If you look at all of my success I've had in 22 years, I've got lots of testimonials. Oh my God. If you just look at the Plant-Based Loser Challenge testimonials on Instagram, So here's the reality. At some point, you got to get beyond fear and uncertainty, because the only thing that's certain is unchanging laws. And you can eat in harmony and in obedience to those laws. God's biology deserves better. God's biology deserves better nutrition. God's biology deserves plant-based foods. And the more plant-based foods you consume as a practice, as a habit, in a systematic way, you won't crave the foods that are creating the pre-existing conditions, hypertension, asthma, abnormal cholesterol levels, central obesity, and on and on and on, which are now causing African Americans to die disproportionately from the coronavirus. It's just the honest truth. So Black folks, we need to stop playing games. When are you going to begin to eat like you matter? I'm a coach. I'm a guide. God does the healing. I just, because of my life's work, what I've been born to do, in my obedience to research, scientific research, and meditation prayer to receive revelation, I've been able to, God's used me in a special way to put things together in ways that a lot of scientists haven't. And that's why a lot of my customers do very well. They get amazing results. This is one of the individuals I had the opportunity to coach. And Susan, if you've got time to come online and share testimony of how I've impacted your life, let me know. I would love for you to tell your story, how I made a difference in your life, why it's important for African Americans to take the Plant-Based Day Pledge. You can discuss how you've benefited from our interaction, how your husband, Daryl, has benefited. Feel free. I can bring you up on screen. Don't be shy. I know you ain't shy. But I can bring you up on screen and you can tell the people how I made a difference in your life. And I have a lot of people that I've worked with in person, online. In fact, Susan Fontenot and Daryl Fontenot, they were part of my first online experience, the Plant-Based Nation community. So the reality of it is, African American people, we deserve, first of all, we matter. People say Black Lives Matter. Of course, Black Lives Matter. All lives matter, because God, if you didn't matter, you wouldn't be here. If animals didn't matter, they wouldn't be here. If humans didn't matter, God wouldn't have put us here. We all matter. However, African Americans, we are here, and we're not meant to live in disease. God didn't create your biology for you to die prematurely from diet-induced chronic diseases. Come on, folks. It's time for change. And I'm excited. I'm happy because God has given me a vision for you. I can actually see health transformations, happening all over the country. I can see African Americans happy on a mass level because they got health. They got health freedom. I want you to exercise your God-given health freedom. See, when you get on a plant-based diet, when you get on a plant-based eating style, you literally activate your intracellular health potential. In other words, God has equipped your biology with health favor. God has equipped your biology with health favor. It's unearned. That potential is there. Now, you can choose to eat highly processed foods and animal products, or you can choose to focus on consuming plant-based foods that are micronutrient dense, that have macronutrient density, that have fiber density. The only foods that have fiber are plant-based foods. You don't need Metamucil. Come on, you don't need no Metamucil. You need an apple and more, not just an apple. You need a whole cacophony, a whole assortment of different plant-based foods. Look at the imagery behind me. Those types of green leafy vegetables, the most nutrient and immune boosting foods on the planet. Green leafy vegetables, the meanest fat burning foods you can put in your body. If you want to know why I look 20 years younger than what I actually am, it's because I put that stuff in. I don't play. Look, God gave me this day, and I appreciate being here. I'm not going to have it forever. It's on loan. Your body's on loan. However, we don't have to die prematurely. So there's a wisdom to eating like you matter. There's a wisdom to recognizing the beauty, the magnificence of being alive. Ah, my goodness, take a deep breath. And if you can't take one like that, then you need to be on the Plant-Based Day Pledge. So more now than ever, we need to eat to strengthen our immune system. We need to eat to nourish our lungs. We need to eat foods that are anti-inflammatory. If you're on animal products, I'm talking seafood as well. Animal products, so many African Americans are on cheese and eggs and all types of meat. And they wonder why they have inflammation. You see, when you consume animal products, they know epidemiologically speaking, which is the study and the science of disease causation. They know when you consume or eat meat or animal protein, there's a reaction in your physiology or tissue called inflammation. So look, I'm not going to go that deep because that's going to be for Plant-Based Day Pledge community members. $20.20. Let me bring up on screen. I'm following the spirit. I was going to show all this data, but you all, you've seen the data. We forget information. It's time for transformation. Let me show you what the Plant-Based Day Pledge is all about. Give me 1 second. I want to show you something very important. Okay, here we go. So this is what it includes. When you become a member, whoops, wrong one. Give me a second. Oh, I got to stop sharing. All right, I see what I got to. Give me a moment. I'm going to bring up some information that's going to be, okay, here we go. All right, so can you see that? Yep. So when you take the Plant-Based Day Pledge, look at what it includes. I'm going to try to bring this on screen even larger. All right, here we go. Plant-Based Day Pledge membership. 24/7 access to the Plant-Based Day Pledge community. You can access the community from your mobile device or a desktop or laptop computer. Plant-Based Day Pledge files. Everything you need is in files. It's a vault. Documents, meal plans, grocery shopping lists, food lists, recipes. Oh my God, plenty of recipes. But more importantly, there's recipes, what I call fun eating, and they're plant-based. But there's these meal plans are therapeutic, meaning if you have pre-existing conditions, if you have chronic diseases, if you have obesity, if you're overweight, if you have central obesity, if you have high blood pressure, if you have type 2, these metabolic meal plans undo or arrest and reverse chronic diseases. And this has been happening in my program for years. And it's been happening in Dr. Furman, Dr. Joel Furman, Dr. Dean Ornish, Dr. Caldwell Esses, and this is happening all over America. If you don't know about it, that's just because you have not set an intention to be healthy. See, everybody says they want to be healthy, but you have to be intentional. You have to be very deliberate. Okay? So you have to be deliberate and you have to engineer your health. That's the key. So take a look at that. I need to send my mom a text. And she called me. That's what's included. I have a new plant-based day meal plan that's available right now. The new super immunity and antiviral foods protocol that's available. The plant-based metabolic weight loss plan will be available in May. It's available, but I'm not going to release it into that platform right away because I want people to focus on one thing at a time. New plant-based intermittent fast plan is going to be released in May. It's completed. Metabolic juice cleanse protocol, been using it for many years, is already completed. I've helped people reverse type 2 diabetes on juices because they don't have any fruits. Webinar series we have not released. It's going to be for the Plant-Based Day Pledge community. Get rid of fat before fat gets rid of you. In fact, being overweight, being obese is one of the listed pre-existing conditions. And across America, overweight and obese people are dying from COVID-19. Pull it up. Pull up obesity and COVID-19 in the search engine. Google it. You'll see. They lay it all out. When you talk about who's dying from COVID-19, a lot of people who are obese. Because when you have obesity, you tend to have respiratory issues, breathing issues, people with sleep apnea. Pull it up. It's on the CDC website. I'm not making this stuff up. I've been researching it for days. So I just want to help. I want to use what God has given me. And for $20.20, $8 a month to maintain your membership, it's going to be $49 after this launch period. It's going to go up to $49. I can easily charge anywhere from $249 to $349 for offering like this, but it's really about helping people. Not that all of my programs aren't about helping people. All of them are about helping people. But when I say helping people, I mean helping people economically, making it so affordable that people can't say when they hear $20.20, oh, I can't afford it. Most of you can. So I am going to post a link. I may go on later, but this isn't about information, Black folks. This is about going from information to transformation. My purpose for using God's energy and time was to get you to go from information to implementation to transformation. It's time. The Plant-Based Day Pledge is about getting you to commit or take a pledge to go plant-based for 24 hours. Now, as a member of the Plant-Based Day community, I'm going to encourage you and support you in remaining plant-based because provided that you honor God's biology at that high level with eating habit change and sustaining a plant-based approach, guess what? Using my metabolic smoothies, metabolic soups, metabolic teas, therapeutic juices, or metabolic juice cleanse coming up for the spring. I got so much good stuff for you. Look, this is called the New Health Revolution. All right. God sent me here to make sure that Black folks, African Americans, can create a new health story. I appreciate your time and help. Got to wrap up. I need to get out and get some sunshine. I love you. It's time for you to love you. It's time for you to eat like you matter. And I'm going to post a link. I'm looking forward to seeing who's the first person that's going to enroll. $20.20, folks. Come on. Let's do it. Support me so I can support you. And let's do this. Let's create a new African American health story. We deserve it. Hold up for a second. I'm trying to come back on screen. And it seems like, oh, let me end this here. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Sometimes there's a little glitch in technology. So this is for you. And God commanded me to make it at a price that's easy peasy. And these are some interesting times economically. Here for you. I look forward to working with you. I'm going to post a link so you can enroll. And once you enroll, I'm going to add you to the community. The link is going to be a info page so you can learn all about the Plant-Based Day Pledge. I just had it on the screen, but I'm going to send the link so you can pull it up for yourself. Look at it, read it, enroll. Let's do it. I look forward to the first Plant-Based Day Pledge member and then the next 10,000. Let's do this, folks. Spread the word. Haven't you heard? African Americans deserve health success. I love you. Talk to you later. I'm looking forward to seeing you take the Plant-Based Day Pledge. I'm going to post the link. Show your support so I can support you and your family. And it's time to take a stand against food slavery. It's time to take a step towards metabolic health, African Americans. Let's no longer tolerate and manage chronic diseases. And we do not have to show up at the cemetery early. I'm asking all of you to eat like you matter so we can show up late. Take care. Thank you for your time and attention.